then somewhere along the line, it seemed like things I was thinking or things that I was saying were having an effect in my life. And so I started paying more attention to that. And I started noticing that I did have an effect in a way. And I started doing these experiments with people, myself included. And I was proving it to myself that these things that I was thinking about were having an impact on what was actually happening. And that's kind of like how I sort of became more and more aware, is basically by doing experiments.
That's a great way to go. Well, I think that for me, um, one of the first steps would have been back in the late 70s, dating myself here, but whatever. Um, Guy that worked for me was very much into Jose Silva's mind control process. And of course, then we had the Moonies and all the cults and things. So they changed it to Silva Ultra Mind. Well, now it's back to being Silva Mind Control. But I bought the book and was really intrigued by it, but skeptical because, thinking people, there can be a skepticism there. And I thought, okay, I'll test drive this and I'll program, is how Silva uh, wrote the book. I'll program for three ridiculous things. And if they happen, there's absolutely no other logical explanation other than this worked. Okay. So at that point in my life, I woke up at the same time every day. You could probably set an alarm clock by me, never used an alarm clock. I generally woke up a little bit grumpy. And I thought, okay, I'm going to program then for 30 minutes earlier to wake up, and that I'll be in a remarkably good mood. And then just as a kicker, I programmed that while I was shaving, I would find myself whistling Dixie. Now, I'm not a person that under any circumstances would be inclined to whistle Dixie, right? Um, and I think Silva calls for doing that. You create that video on the inside of your forehead, and every night as you're going to bed, you play that video. And the concept is that's the last data that your brain gets. It's like the assignment. So all night long, your super mind is working on me making that your reality. And so I did 4 or 5 nights, whatever it was, didn't think about it again until I was shaving one morning and whistling Dixie.
That's a
Oh
great
my
experiment.
God. And then I looked at my watch. Yep, I'm 30 minutes earlier. And sure enough, I'm in just an incredible mood. Now, three random, ridiculous things,
Yep.
not even in my conscious mind, because when it happened, I was like, oh, you're kidding. And so it was just absolutely proof the power of our minds. And of course, now I do hypnosis. Oh, it's
Oh,
it's really the same thing, except I'm the tour guide helping people do their own shifts in their lives. So that awareness, um, yeah, I mean, what is there if there isn't awareness?
exactly. I mean, we have to start somewhere. And I truthfully, if I think back, I can't think of a time in my childhood that I was specific. Like there were things that happened that I was like, well, that was bizarre. But I never could put any of those things together
Yeah.
until I got to the point where I started experimenting. And one of the things I started experimenting with actually was to boost my self esteem. I would
Uh-huh.
tell myself, well, of course, everybody loves you. Now, that isn't where I started. I think I started with, you're lovable. You are lovable.
But even that is a huge
It is.
shift for an awful lot of people.
Yes. Yes.
Did it
Huge.
make you, did it give you a little nervous tick when you first started affirming that?
No, not really. I
Oh,
think
good.
because I had come to the conclusion, and this is kind of what I talk about in my coaching a little bit, is like you have to start somewhere that's easy for you. You can't go from everybody hates me, I'm no good, to everybody loves me, and it's too far of a jump. So you have to
Yep.
start smaller increments. And my first small increment was just noticing that it was a lie in the first place. It's not truth. It's not truth that you're not lovable, because if you don't have anything else other than to say, well, my dog loves me or my cat loves me,
And they absolutely do.
and they absolutely do.
Yeah.
So you have to then realize, become aware of the fact that you are lovable to someone or something. That's a first step, let's say. And then your next step would be, well, then who else in your life? Like maybe it's your mother or your father or your sister or brother or your best friend. There's always a person that you could say, well, they must love me. And then you move from they must love me to, of course I'm lovable because they love me.
I have good evidence. The dogs, the
Evidence.
cats, and these two people love me. I
Exactly.
must be lovable. Yeah,
Right.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, once you have that underway, then you can move into those larger steps where I eventually got to where I was repeating to myself that everybody loves me. I can walk in a room and I'm instantly loved. People don't know
Yeah.
why they love me, but they just love me. And that's a huge jump from where
Where you
I
began.
started, and it's those little things that you're doing. You're becoming more and more aware of your influence,
Yeah.
right? And eventually you get there where you really actually then feel it, and then you're witnessing it, because that's just how creativity works, right? I mean, we're manipulating the matrix, let's say.
And then ultimately, I guess you get to the place where you believe it
Yes.
and you allow it. And it seems to me that that's sort of a paradigm shifting moment. I laugh with clients. It's kind of the Stuart Smalley effect. And you're old enough to remember when Saturday Night Live was good,
Yes.
and he would hit this wimpy little guy in his cardigan, and I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Yeah.
And but so many people have been so programmed by well-meaning people in their lives,
Mhm.
moms, dads, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, teachers, ministers, for the contrary to everything that they truly are. And it's well-meaning mostly, but the whole idea of you have to be perfect. If you're perfect, maybe someday you'll find somebody who can love you a little bit on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you're not feeling particularly loved, look in the mirror, because it must be that you suck. Well, those aren't the exact words, but those are the messages that we get. And then that little voice sits on our shoulder until we evict it. And that's the message we get. And so it's such an incredible shift of power and to an honest reality, I believe, of, just sitting here breathing, I'm worthy and deserving of unconditional love. And if there is someone in my life who is unable or unwilling to go there, I guess I need to reevaluate how welcoming I am to having them have a seat at the table. If they only bring rotten potato salad, I don't invite them back to the potluck.
Right.
And I do, I believe that we're all the same person, just walking around in different bodies, wrestling our different demons at different times. And that is what makes life interesting. And it opens the door for people like you and I to be able to be of service and to use our the steps that we've taken that have left something smelly on our shoes to help somebody else avoid all that and to
Right.
rise above. And so I don't know. Some days I think, wow, you are just so Pollyanna naive, but yet it's the reality that I do believe in everything.
and choose. And that comes out of awareness.
Well,
Right?
there you go.
You choose it. Like, I choose to see things this way.
Yep.
It's not that I don't recognize that these other things are happening in the world or to other people. It's not that I'm not recognizing that. It's that I'm choosing not to have that experience for myself. And that comes
To
out
live
of
there.
awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go a little deeper and weirder with it, I believe that we also sat down with the committee when we were in pure spirit form with a prospectus for this lifetime. And we wrote into our script every single person, good, bad, or indifferent, every single lesson to be taught or lesson to be learned.
Yes.
And when I got to that place, and I was, oh man, I was well into my 50s by the time I got to that. Thanks to Carolyn Mace and Sacred Contracts. But when I can look at some of the relationships in my life that were, there was always something on the bottom of my shoe, I'll say. But when I got to the place where I recognized that, oh wait, we negotiated that, and they loved me enough to be the SOB that they were, in order for me to maybe break a multi-lifetime pattern, in
Mhm.
order for me to look in the mirror and go, oh, wait, that's not real. I don't suck that badly. I only suck a little today. Whatever that transitional point would be. But man, I see so many people that have either given away or had their power shoplifted from them, or that voice becomes their own voice,
Yes.
and they're like, oh, you just suck. Overweight people, they look in the mirror and they go, oh, you big fat lazy slob. Well, no, they're probably eating for comfort, anger, frustration, loneliness, sadness, or it's mealtime. And so it just sort of, and mom taught them, primarily mom, um clean up your plate, you'll be a big boy.
Yeah.
Mom the prophet. And then
That's so good.
got a piece of cake as a reward.
Mm, right.
So, but
Right.
see,
But
all of
that
those,
was a lack of awareness on their part.
yeah.
And
And I know that there are parents still doing that today from that same place of love.
sure, sure,
Yeah, yeah,
out of a lack of awareness.
yeah,
So that's the whole reason for even having a conversation around this, is because you don't know what you don't know. Right? You
yeah.
don't know that you're not aware of these things until you hear someone talk about these things, and then you become more aware, and then you can make different choices.
Exactly. And one of my favorite I love cliches because there's just so much truth embedded in them. In order for there to be change, there has to be change. It
Yeah.
sounds like double talk, but
Yeah.
yet there are seemingly a lot of people walking around going, well, I don't want to change anything, but I'd like to go from a size 14 to a size 6. Snap their fingers and nothing happens. And it isn't only about weight, and I don't want to
Right.
focus in on that specifically, um, but I have found that that's an arena that almost everybody walking around can relate to one way or another.
Yeah.
So yeah, awareness, man. It's um, when you can see and smell and feel, probably more important, BS when it's still a mile away. Game changer.
Then you can avoid stepping in it.
Exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. And isn't that the goal? To get
Yeah.
home with
Yeah.
clean shoes. And I love when you and I talk. Okay, because we really, even though it's light and fun, we really go pretty deep on some of this stuff. And when you look
Yeah.
at it, it comes out as being, oh my God, that's so deep, but yet it's so incredibly simple.
Simple. Right. And that's why I think it's overlooked so much, is because of its simplicity. we're looking for the complicated solution to our complicated problem.
Yep. Well, and we have companies spending bazillions of dollars on advertising to make sure that we believe that the only solution to any problem we might have is a pill. Um, I listen to the side effects on some of those, and I think, man, I don't know what it's treating, but I sure don't want those side effects. You know,
Yeah.
but we're so programmed, and that's a word I don't use lightly, but I really do feel like in oh god, 100 different arenas in our individual lives, we're so completely programmed,
Well,
and
they
it's
call it
so
programming, right?
yeah,
You're watching television. What are you watching? You're watching a program.
yeah.
There's a
Well, there you go.
television
Yeah,
program.
and and in real life, there's nothing that we can't be the script creator, the director, and the star of whatever story, whatever narrative we want to create in our
Right.
lives.
With a little awareness, we can
Yeah,
do anything.